What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jordan and today we're going to be working on my Porsche Cayman S. It has an issue with its crankshaft position sensor. I'm going to show you how I figured out how to problem, how we diagnosed it, and hopefully how we fix it. So stick around. So instead of me telling you what happened, let's hop in the car. I'm going to turn it on, that way you can see for yourself what happens to the car when you have this issue. It basically is just hard to start and it throws a bunch of cells and then it puts the car in limp mode so it drives really slowly. So it's pretty obvious when you have the problem, but let's do it anyway. And just like I said before, it's really hard to start, then it throws a bunch of cells and codes and then it's in limp mode. So we'll see what that looks like. Alright, so we have reduced engine performance, start-stop disabled, fault engine control, PSM disabled. So basically, it's yelling at you, it's got a lot of problems. Also has a regular check engine light on here and a PSM light. So yeah, when I saw this morning, I definitely was not excited. Time to back the car up on some ramps and see what's going on. As soon as I saw these issues this morning, the first thing that I did was go to Autozone. They have a tool there that lets them read the computer inside the car, and it tells you all the things that are wrong with it. Sometimes one little issue can cause a bunch of issues and notifications on your dash, so even though you have a bunch of things coming up on your dash, it doesn't mean that there's a whole lot that could be wrong. Maybe just one thing is wrong, and then you can go from there and just fix that one thing and it fixes all the problems. So yeah, I went to AutoZone, they checked it out, it took like 2 minutes. They told me that I had an error code, which is P0355, and that is the crankshaft position sensor. So what that tells me is there's an error with the crankshaft position sensor. So in theory, we can replace that sensor and all the issues will be gone. After doing a bit of research, I found out that the crankshaft position sensor is the front left of the transmission. So it goes the engine all the way in the middle, then the transmission behind that, and so the front left of the transmission is where we're going to find that sensor, and it's supposed to be next to the oil filter casing. Hopefully I can get my hand up in there enough so that I can pull out the sensor, but also fit a screwdriver in there to undo one screw. That's it, and then it should be easy peasy from there. Alright, so now that we're under the car, we're right by the rear left wheel, and if you look in this hole here through everything, you can see the sensor we need to get to. Right there with the red cords coming out of it. And really good news is I think it's pretty accessible. I think I might be able to get to it from under the car just using my arms and screwdriver and all of that. I think it's going to be tight, but I definitely think that we can get it. If we had to go through the top, it was going to be a much bigger job and much worse. So I'm really happy that we can get to it from the bottom. But I wanted to visually inspect the plug and the wire and everything to make sure that no rodents had gotten in and chewed holes in the wire. But now that we know that the plug and the wire is good, it means that we need to replace the sensor. So I'm going to zoom out here, see if you can get some perspective on where we're at. We're just going to go right through that hole right underneath the axle, and hopefully we should be able to get to it. So we're going to move to a little jump cut. I'm going to go order the sensor, and it's going to take a couple days for it to get here. In the meantime, the Datsun's going to be my daily for a few days, so totally not the end of the world, but it is going to take a couple days for us to fix this, so we will see you when I receive the parts. Alright, so it's a couple days later, and we have the parts, so let's check out what we got. I went to the Porsche dealership and they were really good about getting the parts to me really quickly. So you can see here, this is the sensor that we're going to be using today, and it's really simple. The way it's in the car is it's oriented kind of like this, and you have to put this spacer on there when you install it. And there's just one screw that goes in right here into the car. It's just a flathead screw. It's called a cheese head screw, which I'm not really sure why it's called that, but it goes right here. You literally just do one screw, undo it. We're going to unplug the plug and then pull it out and put the new one in. So in theory, it's supposed to be that easy. I think the hardest part is going to be getting up in the car, getting my hand in there with the screwdriver. Hopefully, it all goes well. If you watch one of my other videos, you'll see that I usually do my work on the Datsun, at my dad's house, so I have all my tools at my dad's house. We literally just moved into this house a little while ago, but for this job, all we're gonna need is a little baby screwdriver, and I think that's it. So the screw is actually on top of the sensor on the top part, not on the bottom part. So it's just the one screw right here. You just undo that and it just pops right out. Okay, so it turns out that not every job is always as easy as it sounds, which I think that if you work on cars, you're pretty used to that. But it turns out that the screwdriver is not going to work. It's actually not a flathead cheese head screw, but it's actually a T40 Torx head screw. And unfortunately, my adapter for that is just a little bit too long, so I'm gonna have to run to the store and get a T40 socket and a little tiny wrench, and we should be good to go. And just like that, with the power of YouTube, we are back from the store with our T40 Torx bit and our 1/4 inch ratchet. This is gonna be the perfect size for us to get up in there in that little tight space and undo that sensor. Man, it is amazing how much easier it is to do things when you have the right tools. But this is the screw that was on the car this time. And I thought it was a flathead screw, but it wasn't. It was a Torx bit, T40. And here is the old sensor. Looks just like the new one, but, you know, less dirty. Or this one's more dirty. Well, after all that work and buying this expensive sensor and getting all the replacement parts and the tools, it turns out that a rodent did eat the wires of my plug. This is just so dumb. Check it out. After fiddling with this and inspecting it, all of a sudden I realized that the brown and the white wire were detached. And when it was attached to the engine, it looked like this and it looked like it was fine. But now, totally not fine. And also, it's a clean cut on those two little cords, so it tells me that some kind of rat or something was just crawled under the car and decided to bite on it, and that is like super frustrating. So I don't know, I'm gonna have to rewire this plug. This is just a totally different job than I had prepared for. So, all right, let's make a plan and get into it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the sensor that I bought in the car. It's brand new and the car already has 70,000 miles on it, so it's probably a good idea just to put it in anyway. And then I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do about the plug. Maybe there's an easy way to put the wires in the plug so that way I don't have to like cut it and solder it. I just think that'd be really hard with how tight a space it is. First, let's put the sensor back in and then we'll go from there. And once again, we're back from the store. You know, magic of YouTube, everything happens instantly. I went to the store, I got a soldering iron. It was like $9. I haven't used one of these in forever. I actually used to modify my Xboxes when I was a kid, and I used to solder little lights, LED lights, in like the controllers and in the actual Xbox itself. So it's been a long time since I've used these things, but I think we will be all good. Then I got a pair of really sharp, tiny snips to help me expose the wires under there. So the wires are covered in like a rubber insulation, and so you're supposed to peel back some of that insulation so that way you can expose the wires and you can solder or weld them together. And then I also got some solder, which is just basically like your metal that you're going to be putting to attach the things together. And basically you use the soldering iron to heat up the wire, and then you push this onto the wire, and then it basically melts inside of it, connecting the two. Then I also got some shrinkable wire insulation. So basically you just slide that over and then take like a lighter, like a regular lighter, just heat it up and it will shrink around the wire. That way the exposed copper of the wire is covered and protected. So this is gonna be really hard to film, but let's get into it. The trickiest part of this repair is definitely gonna be exposing the copper on the plug side. So these little nubs here, we have to slowly really carefully chip away at the insulation on the outside, and then that'll give us room to add the solder to connect them together. So I really don't want to damage those wires or pull them out, because if I pull them out, then that means the whole plug is messed up and I'm gonna have to get a new plug. Like I said before, this is gonna be really hard to film, so I'm gonna do my best to film it, but I really just need to get this done today. I was able to just really carefully remove some of that brown insulation from the exterior of the wires, and then now you can see the shiny of the copper. So now that the copper is exposed, we can start planning how we're gonna solder it together. But before I do that, I'm going to slide this insulation over each wire, and that way once I'm done soldering them together, I can just scoot it down, and then we can heat shrink this around the wire. What I decided to do is I decided to put a little bit of solder on the harness side and a little bit of solder on the plug side. And then what I did is I just was able to squeeze them together and heat them up together at the same time. And it made a really nice bond there. So that's super encouraging, and I am feeling super good and ready to do the next one. Wow, guys, I am seriously like so stoked that I was able to repair this. I did not think it was going to go well, but it's okay. But these are really solid connections. I'm very happy with them. And the best way that I found to do this in such a tight area and with only 2 hands is to apply some solder to the plug part of the wire and apply some solder to the harness side of the wire and then heat them up together. So basically it's like a 2-part process. So add solder, then remove the solder from, that way you have a free hand. And then you move them together and then put the soldering iron right there in the joint, and then it sticks together. So yeah, super excited about this, and hopefully everything works. Now the last step to this repair would be sliding down that heat insulation that I put on there before soldering and heat shrinking it around the wire. But before I do that, I'm going to plug it back in and turn the car on and see if everything works good. And then if it does work good, then I'll come back, unplug the plug, and heat shrink the wire insulation. I'm going to jump in the car, I'm going to turn it on, and hopefully there's no cells. I mean, there might be. I read online that if you don't detach the battery, it's not going to reset the ECU, but I didn't know if I really wanted to reset the ECU. So let's turn it on and see if it's okay, or if not. Best case scenario, it turns on and we're good to go. All right, moment of truth. Let's see. Okay, so I turned the car on and a majority of the check engine lights went off, but there still is one, and I'm wondering if maybe I just have to clear the ECU of that notification and everything will be good to go. So I'm not sure, but I think I'm gonna take it around the block and see what happens when I drive it for a few minutes. All right, so it seems like everything is running fine. For example, woo! Oh yeah, that's nice. That's real nice. Alright, so I just got off the phone with Autozone, and good news is they have a tool there at Autozone that can clear your check engine light. I'm a little bit skeptical because this is a Porsche, and online everyone's always talking about how it's so complicated that you can't reset it. But this is a 2014 model year car, so maybe they do have the tools nowadays. So let's go over to AutoZone. It's just like 3 or 4 miles away, and this is gonna be easier than I thought. Well, believe it or not, as I was driving, the check engine light went away. So I guess the car just fixes itself after a little while. And that is good news. Well guys, on that final note, I think the repair was successful. We put the new sensor on that I didn't need, and then we found out that the mouse had eaten the wires, so we went in there and soldered it together. That was definitely an adventure. I hadn't done any soldering since I was a young kid working on Xboxes and Xbox controllers and stuff like that, so that was a lot of fun. If you enjoyed watching the video and seeing how we troubleshooted these problems, like and subscribe, comment below, let me know your thoughts, and can't wait for the next one. See you guys later. Just know that even though you're a beginner or a novice, you can usually figure it out yourself too. And we'll catch you guys next time.